Bleh. I saw the TV glow. This was streaming on Max. Look a little closer. Directed by Jane Schoenbrun. Teenager Owen is just trying to make it through life in the suburbs when his classmate Maddy introduces him to a mysterious late-night TV show, a vision of a supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. That is a pretty good description of the synopsis. But this movie, I found this movie to be very frustrating. I loved it. That's why I hearted it. I liked it a lot, but it's lacking in a lot of areas. Maybe if I rewatch it, I will accept it more for like what it is, but I'm still let down by what it could have been. Too much for me to like give it a a higher rating, perhaps. Now, the one thing, okay, so this was sort of written off as like an A24 movie. It is an A24 movie. It's done by, along with Emma Stone's production company. And I saw the trailers for this at the Alamo, and I was like, I have to see this in the theater, and I wasn't able to get to it. I was really upset. It was only around for a very short time. I wish that I had seen it in the theater. It would have been far more effective, I think, to watch it in a darkened theater. The pacing of this movie is painfully slow. It's painfully slow. It's 100 minutes long. And I just found that there were just certain moments where I'm just like, fuck, like, what are you doing with your running time here? Fred Durst plays the father, and it's a weird performance, but I like it. I really was annoyed by the main character, Owen. His voice, he's got this like whiny kind of voice that really just made me want to punch him in the face. That was frustrating. I was trying to figure out like what the message of this film is. It's saying something. You could tell this is a deeply personal film for Jane, the director. They are clearly writing from a place that is very personal for them. And you could tell because, Jane is, I don't know where Jane falls on the sort of LGBTQ spectrum. And I don't want to mislabel because I don't know. But what's interesting is this movie feels very like it's them writing about their experience in sort of exploring whatever their gender happens to be. You know what I mean? So this movie is definitely about gender, down to like there's like a parachute at the beginning that has the trans colors or something. It's either trans or it's one of the flags, one of the pride flag colors. Because usually those parachutes have different colors. There is, the movie starts in the 90s and 96 and goes all the way to present day. And you can tell there's like this Jane is someone who grew up on Nickelodeon and Are You Afraid of the Dark and The Adventures of Pete and Pete, because like there's like a lot of like older Pete like monologue stuff, which is interesting, but it's like it's ultimately a lot of the runtime is just like the sort of like this filmed voiceover framing device, and they don't really, the more fantastical elements, I feel like we just don't get enough of them. There's just not enough of it. What's there is very interesting, and ultimately what is Jane trying to say as well, in addition to that stuff about, gender and whatever, I think, is the idea that we can live forever in the shows that we watched as children. They are these worlds that do exist and that they never go away. And that even though time changes us, we experience time differently. We grow up. Life can be hard or miserable or confusing or lonely. That that ultimately we can find an anchor in this thing that we live for, that we have this passion for, or whatever. So when they're talking about like a show that happens at 10, comes on at 10:30 at night on the young adult network or whatever it's called, I'm like, oh my God, this is like supposed to be Snick, and that's supposed to be Are You Afraid of the Dark? And it's amazing. Like, I love that. And you know, Jane doesn't try to lean too heavily on the Nickelodeon vibe. Like, it's definitely there, but like, Jane isn't trying to mimic the exact aesthetic. They're trying to keep it sort of similar to, they're trying to do their own thing with it. And I respect that. What I don't respect, or what I found just infuriating, was just like I need to see some more, like, stuff needs to happen, you know? The relationship between the characters was frustrating. You know, him being resistant to following her into the unknown frustrated me. I definitely need to rewatch it though, now that I've seen it all the way through. And sort of, I think it'll allow me, like, now that my expectations are sort of, you know, I don't know. By the way, Pete is in it. Older Pete is in this movie, man. And it's the first time that he's acted. And Danny, both Danny Tamborelli and Michael C. Marone, who have a podcast, a Pete and Pete podcast, are in this film, which was so cool. So you know that Jane was all about the Adventures of Pete and Pete, which is one of my favorite TV shows growing up. So again, so like I said though, what did not work, one thing that did not work at all was the the Pete voiceover thing. There was just too much of it, man. There's too much of it. There was not enough. And I loved Mr. Melancholy he was the trip to the moon. It was literally a trip to the moon face. And I was kind of thinking like, wow, I really need to incorporate that in my film as well. My shadow. That'll be the inspiration that I take from I Saw the TV Glow. And ultimately, you know, it ends with like, he like opens his chest and he's got like a TV inside. And that's like, I guess, to sort of say that, like, you know, no matter how much he ages, this guy, Owen, who, you know, is like freaking out about aging, I guess, as the years tick on, as he loses his parents, as, you know, things change and he works at these dead end jobs. You know, again, the idea that like the interior of his youth in watching this TV show it's still there, and it's always going to be with him no matter how old he gets. So that was kind of like some of the messaging I got out of it. I highly recommend you definitely check out this movie. It's not, you know, it's funny. This is marketed as a horror film. I saw like the genre is horror. It's not a horror film. It's really not. It's definitely a genre film. It's definitely it's going to get some cult legs on it as well. I really think so. I think it'll have a cult following in the years to come. But you know, it does not, it's not a horror film. If I could go back, I would probably not watch this for 31 Days of Halloween, but it's too late. I already have. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I finally saw it. I'll definitely watch it again. I'll wait some years before I do, but I'll definitely give it another go and check it out.